Tov. Today's daf yomi is Nedarim daf nun beis, but we are going to start on the bottom of Nud Aleph. On the beis, 2 lines from the bottom. Hanoder minacholav. If a person says, "I'm not going to eat milk," he takes a vow against eating milk. Mutter bekom. Then he's allowed to eat the comb. The comb is, I don't know if it's the modern Hebrew word also, but in English it's whey. That is when you make the cheese, the solid separates from the liquid, and the liquid is called whey, and the solid is called cheese. So if somebody takes a vow from milk, it doesn't include whey. And today, if we were writing this Mishnah, we would say if you take a vow from milk, are you allowed to drink soy milk or almond milk? That'll be the question for today. But in the time of the Mishnah, they said if you take a vow against chalav, you're allowed to drink comb. Rabbi Yossi Oser. Rabbi Yossi says if you take a vow against milk, you're not allowed to drink comb. Minakom, let's say you take a vow against comb, mutter b'chalav, then you're allowed to drink the milk. If you take a vow against the comb, you're allowed to drink the milk. Because for sure, milk is not included within whey. Whey is a more specific thing than milk. Abba Shaul teaches, Hanoder min hagvina. Abba Shaul teaches that if somebody takes a vow against the cheese, aser ba be'merucha utefela. If somebody takes a vow against cheese, you're prohibited to have the cheese, whether it's salted, which is the normal way, or tefela, it's unsalted, which is the non-normal way. But it's all included within the category of cheese. Hanoder min habasar, if somebody takes a vow against meat, mutar, we're on top of Nun Beis Amid Aleph 52a. You're going to be allowed to have rotev. You're allowed to have the sauce that's cooked alongside the meat, the kippah, and also you're allowed to have the kippah. Is the Ran says this is the dak shel basar sheyored l'shuleach teira. This is a little small piece of meat that get stuck on the bottom of the pot. So that's if you take a vow against meat, you can eat these items. Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot do it. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Ma'asev Asar Rabbi Tarfon Bebeitzim Shenispashal Imo. Rabbi Tarfon, there was an incident. Rabbi Tarfon said not only we're not allowed. Rabbi Tarfon said we're not allowed to have the eggs. Like if you cook an egg in a meat pot, and then it gets the flavor of the meat. Rabbi Tarfon said if you take a vow against the meat, then you're not even allowed to have those eggs. Amrulo, they said to him, so the Chachamim said back to Rabbi Tarfon, Kena Davar, you're correct that if you take a vow against meat, you're not going to be allowed to have the eggs, but it depends on the nature of the wording you use when making the vow. Eimatai, when is this the case? If you say this piece of meat or this piece is prohibited upon me, then this piece extends into the eggs. Because then what's going to happen is, since this piece of meat, let's say a piece of meat A, is prohibited upon you, and then the taste from that meat goes into the eggs, then it's going to be prohibited. But say the Chachamim that if you would just make a vow against meat in general, then the eggs would be permitted. Depends on the nature of the wording of the vow. I know if somebody takes a vow against wine, mutter b'tavshil, then you're going to be allowed to have a cooked food, sheyesh bo tam yayin, which has the taste of wine. So if you take a vow against wine and you use wine to, let's say, season the chicken, then you're going to allow to eat the tavshil, the cooked food that has the chicken in it, because it has the cooked food that has the taste of the wine in it. But Amar Konem Yayin Zeh Shani Toem. But let's say you say, I take a vow against eating this wine, Vinafo Atavshil, and then that wine falls into the cooked food in Yeshba Ben Osein Tam. Since you use the language of this wine, if it has taste, Harei Asur, it's prohibited. And before we turn the page over to Amud Beis and Beis and Beis, you see on this page the very, very, very long Ran, very, very long commentary Ran. We're not going to go into the full depth and breadth of the beauty of this Ran. Just say briefly 2 points that the Ran makes. First of all, the Ran asked, and other commentaries asked the fundamental question: it says if there is taste, if there's no taste, it says if you have eggs that are cooked with it, and if there's no taste, then the eggs are going to be, if there's no taste of the meat, then the eggs are going to be permitted. And the Ran asks a question, as do the other commentaries. Why? So we're saying if there's no taste of the meat and the eggs, then you can eat the eggs, because we're saying that the taste of the meat is nullified because there's no taste there, so the taste is nullified. This is called bitul in halachic terminology. It's nullification. Normally we say taste is nullified, it's 60 times the amount. But here we're saying it's nullified by taste, because you could give it to somebody who doesn't take the vow and they could taste it. If they don't taste it, we say it's nullified. So but ask all the commentaries, why should this be nullified? This is what's called a davar sheyesh lo matirin. If something will eventually become permitted, we generally say that the laws of nullification don't apply. So in this case, since the vow can ultimately be annulled, and you can annul the vow and say that you can eat meat. In fact, you're supposed to annul the vow ultimately. So therefore, it should be what's called a davar sheyesh lo matirin. It's something that could be annulled, and it's not nullified. So what's the reason why we say it's nullified? And so the commentaries answer that when do we say that a davar sheyesh lo matirin is not nullified? Only where it's two of the same substances. If it's min b'mino, let's say a piece of meat in another piece of meat, then we're not going to nullify it. But if it is min b'she'eno mino, like here, meat within eggs, then we're going to say it's going to be nullified. That's the Ran's point. But then the Ran asks a fundamental point. Why is it we say that if it's min b'mino, it's not nullified? If it's the same types of substance, it's not nullified. And whereas if it is min b'she'eno mino, if it's an item that's not the same, like in this case, meat and eggs, why do we say if it is nullified? So what's the reason? If there's two different substances, it nullifies it, where if it's the same substance, it doesn't nullify it. And they're on its theory, and there are different theories here, but amongst the Rishonim, but we'll just say the Ran's, because he's here. The Ran's theory is that the Ran's theory is that when it is the same type of substance, then the taste that you would want to nullify is actually just being enhanced by the other flavor in there. So if you have non-kosher meat being cooked with kosher meat, they're both from the same cow, just one was slaughtered, and then you just they're both the cows, and just one was slaughtered properly and one wasn't. So then you put the non-kosher meat inside the pot of kosher meat, the taste is just going to be enhanced by the non-kosher meat. But if you have, and so therefore we're not going to say it's nullified. But if it is kosher meat and milk, then the two tastes are working in opposition to each other, and then one can get rid of the taste completely. So that's the Ran's theory. Okay, so now let us go to the text of the Gemara on the top of the Beis and the Beis 52b. V'raminu. So ask the Gemara, why does Rabbi Yossi prohibit it? Rabbi Yossi says that if you say in the Mishnah, it says in the Mishnah, if you take a vow against milk, you're prohibited in way. It means if you take a vow against something general category, you're prohibited against even a specific part of that category. So it states, Raminu min adashim asar ba'ashishim. If you take a vow against lentils, you're prohibited in ashishim, and Rabbi Yossi matir. But Rabbi Yossi allows you to have the ashishim. What's the ashishim? So the Mefaresh explains, okay, that this is lechem, this is bread, shemura bo kemach shel adashim. That the flour of lentils is mixed in, because he says, because the Ran tells us the ashishim comes from the Jerusalem Talmud, the inun talapchi, the megablon metagnim dvash, and so it's this type of lentils that you cook with honey. So basically, Rabbi Yossi allows it, even though it's lentils, but since it's changed its format, he says it's not going to be considered like it's like a vow against lentils, and therefore he says it's permitted. So why do we say Rabbi Yossi prohibits the comb, but he's going to permit he prohibits the whey, but he allows the lentils. It's a contradiction in the position of Rabbi Yossi. Gemara says, "Lo kasha, it's not difficult. Why do the Rabbanan allow the whey and Rabbi Yossi prohibits it?" Marki Asri. They lived in different locations, and it goes according to the way people speak. In different parts of the country, people speak differently. The Asri, the Rabbanan, the place where the Rabbanan lived, Karu l'chalba chalba, v'lakuma kuma. They called chalba milk, and they called kuma whey. The Asri, the Rabbi Yossi, in the place of Rabbi Yossi, with kuma nami karu kuma the chalba. They also called whey kuma the chalba. They called it whey milk. So therefore, it would be prohibited. Tanya, I know there, because it would be in the category of milk. Tanya, I know there minacholav. Somebody takes a vow against milk, mutter bekom. Somebody takes a vow against milk, is going to be allowed to have the comb, to have the whey. So this price is just basically repeating a lot of what we know already, what we established the principle. Somebody takes a vow against the milk, is allowed to have the whey. Minakom, takes a vow against the whey, mutter b'cholav. He's allowed to have the milk. Minacholav, if he takes a vow against the milk, mutter b'gvina. Let's say somebody says, I'm not eating dairy, but he says, I'm not eating milk, he's allowed to have cheese. Now let's say he says, minagvina, if he takes a vow against cheese, mutter b'cholav. He's allowed to have the milk. Minarotev, from the gravy, mutter b'kipa. He's allowed to have a little small piece of meat at the bottom. Minakipa, if he takes a vow against the little pieces, mutter b'rotev. He's allowed to have the rotev. Imam or basar zalai aser. Bo uberotfo b'kipo. If he says this meat is prohibited upon me, this meat, it means we've established from our Mishnah, means any of the flavors coming out from it, so he's prohibited to have it, its sauce, and also its little pieces of meat. I know them in ayayin, mutter b'tav shel sheyesh bo tam yayin. If you take a vow against wine, then you're allowed to eat. If you say, I'm not having any wine, then you can eat the food items that are cooked with wine. One time there was a person who I was studying with, and he was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was studying this, and he said, yeah, he also eats cooked, if wine was cooked, but the food, he'll eat it, but he won't eat it. He won't drink the wine if it's not cooked. So this is basically from our Mishnah. If you say a vow, from our Brisa, or if you say take a vow against wine, you're still allowed to eat like a food that was cooked with wine. Amar konam yayin zeh sheni toim. Let's say he says, I'm not going to eat this wine, and then the wine falls into the cooked food. If it has the taste of wine, then it's prohibited with taste. Why does the Brisa and the Mishnah have to give us examples both about meat and about wine? It's the same din. It's the same law with meat and with wine. I will have to look into that. So now we're up to the next Mishnah. Hanoider mina anavim. Somebody who takes a vow against grapes. Mutar b'yayin. If you say I'm not going to eat any grapes, you're still going to be allowed to eat the wine. If you say mina zeisim, let's say you take a vow against olives, mutar b'shemen. If you take a vow against olives, you're allowed to have oil. Amar konam zeisim v'anavim elu sh'eni toim. Let's say you say konam zeisim v'anavim elu sh'eni toim. Let's say you say I'm not going to eat grapes or olives, I'm not going to taste them. Well, then it's going back to the question of taste again, and then we're going to say it's prohibited, but no same time. Asr bahan, ubayotze bahan. So then you're going to be prohibited with them, and also with the derivatives of them. So fine. Bye, Rami Bar Chama. So Rami Bar Chama asked the following question, because it says in our Mishnah, what's the language of our Mishnah? The language of our Mishnah is, you say, Konim zeisim v'anavim elu, these grapes and olives, these elu she'eni toim, that I won't taste, then you're going to be prohibited, and also in the derivatives. Asr b'henu b'yotzi b'hen. So what is the language that you're using here to say that you're prohibited in no same time from the grapes and the olives? It says elu, these she'ani toim, that I taste. So Rami Bar Chama asked the question, when you say that, what's the word that's the indicative that it's being prohibited, not just a specific grape or olive, but not grapes or olives in general, but the taste that's derived from this grape and olive. What's the word that he said in his formulation that makes him prohibited in the derivative taste? Is it elu dafka or sheini toim dafka? What's the word that he used that make it prohibited in taste? Is if he said these grapes, elu, or sheini toim, that I'm not going to taste it? Which word here is the significant word? Now, if you say that the specific word is elu, that if he says elu anavim the zeisim, and then he's not going to be able to eat the taste, if that's the specific word. Well, if that's the case, sheini tom amoli, then why does it have to say in our Mishnah? If he says sheini tom, that's superfluous. It could just say elu zeisim anavim, and he wouldn't be allowed to eat the derivatives. So sheini tom, what's the point of it? So Gemara says, "Kamash Malan, isn't it teaching us the afagav the amar sheini tom, that even though he says that I taste, ida amar elu mitzar v'lo lo, that if he says these, the taste will be prohibited, and if not, not." So don't we see from here that the key so we're not able to prove which word is the most specific. Do we need both or not? So the Gemara is going to try and prove which word is the most important word here. Amarava tashma konam peros ha'elu. That Rava says if a person takes from the Brisa, what does the Brisa say? Excuse me, from the Mishnah on Nun Zayin Amud Aleph. Mishnah says konam peros ha'elu alai. If a person uses this word elu, he says, I take a vow that these fruits are prohibited upon me. Konim hain, then they are going to be prohibited. Konim hain lapi, that, or if he says they are prohibited to my mouth, also b'chilufein u'b'gidulein. Then they're prohibited chilufein, anything that you exchange them with. If you take these fruits and you exchange them with other fruits, or with anything that grows from them, if you plant it, which implies that if you say this word elu, what's prohibited? Chilufein v'gidulein, but not the taste that's derived from them. How about by yotzi by mutar? Wouldn't this imply that anything that's a derivative from them, a taste from them, will be permitted? Where it says no. No, even the taste from them will be prohibited. So why does it only say the example of chilufein and gidulein? The chilufein and gidulein. No, it's teaching us a bigger chiddush, that if you exchange it, it's the equivalent of something that you plant and it grows from it, that it's going to be prohibited. That's a bigger chiddush than also the taste that comes out from it is prohibited. Gemara says, okay, let's try and bring a proof from the next Mishnah. The Mishnah is also on Nun Zayin. What does the Mishnah say after that part? It says, she'eni ochal v'she'eni toim. If you say these fruits I will not eat and I will not taste, mutar b'chilufein u'b'gidulein. If you just say the expression, you don't say kona peros ha'elu alai, but you say she'eni ochel she'enu teon, then you're allowed to eat their chilufein and their gidulein, because there what's being prohibited is hayotze me'an aser, but you're not allowed to eat what the taste that comes out from them. But here, what was the phrase that you say? She'eni ochel she'eni toim. That if you use this expression of eni toim, then you're not allowed to eat that which comes out from them. So we see from here that the key phrase is she'eni toim. Gemara says no. I do a nasiv bereisha yotze man lo nasiv nami b'seifa yotze man. So the Gemara says no, that's not an answer. What's the reason? So the Gemara says really it's possible to say that if he said elu, you would be prohibited in the derivatives that came out of the fruit, the liquid that comes out of the fruit. What's the reason why he says she'eni toim? Why do we say that? Why does he not teach us this law? Because in the Reisha it didn't say elu, it didn't say that he's prohibited in these liquids. It's really possible. It's possible to say that if you say the expression of any time, you really would be permitted. So why didn't it say it here that it's permitted? Why does it only say mutar b'chilufein b'gidulein? And only because in the Reisha of the Mishnah it was talking about chilufein and gidulein. So therefore, that's what it's talking about in the Seifa. But it's really possible that you shouldn't infer from here that it's prohibited. If you say any time, it's prohibited in the liquids that come out from it and the taste, because it's possible that it just didn't include that because it was focusing on chilufein and giduleihen. So the Gemara says, we're talking about the liquids and the taste that comes out from it. So the Gemara says, Tashma, another attempt to prove what's the key phrase, Elu or any toim. Tashma, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Ma'aseh v'asa Rabbi Tarfon Olai. This is from our Mishnah on Amud Aleph, and Beis Amud Aleph, that Rabbi Tarfon said there was an incident. Rabbi Tarfon prohibited upon us beitzim shenispashlu imo, the eggs that were cooked with the meat. If you prohibit meat upon yourself, you're going to prohibit the eggs that are cooked with it. Amar lo, and Chacham said to him, Amosai, when are the eggs prohibited? Bisman shamar basar ze'alai. If he says explicitly, this meat is prohibited upon me. Shanoder min hadavar v'nesar ba'achar v'yesh bo b'no sintam harei asar. So therefore, that's when he says it's prohibited to have the. That's when it's prohibited to have the taste that comes along with it. In the case where he says basar zeh, and basar zeh is really the equivalent of be'elu. And so therefore, we see from here in this case where he says be'elu or basar zeh, even without she'ini toim, that the liquids or the taste that comes out from it is going to be prohibited. And so therefore, shouldn't that answer our question that the key phrase is be'elu? So the Gemara says no, be'elu lo can be ba'elu, the dafku. No, for sure, if he says be'elu, we're going to say that the liquids that come out from it and the taste that comes out from it is prohibited. But that wasn't Rami Bar Chama's question. We have to re-understand what Rami Bar Chama was really asking. What was Rami Bar Chama asking? Kikami Bailan, what was he asking? B'she'eni toim. If he just uses the word she'eni toim, he doesn't use the word elu, dafka or lav dafka. If he just uses the word she'eni toim, under those circumstances, is it including dafka, specifically this food, and so therefore the liquids that come out from it are also prohibited, or lav dafka, or is it meaning if he just says she'eni toim, is he not prohibiting this specific food? It's just referring to the food category, and therefore the liquids that come out from it are not prohibited. So that's what the question is about b'she'eni toim. So the Gemara says, well, let's try and bring a proof from a Mishnah we had on Nud Aleph. Dagim, which we said was large fish and small fish, she'eni toim, that I'm not going to taste. Says the Mishnah, Asar Bahen, you prohibit to have them, bein gedolim, bein ketanim, that you're not allowed to have the large fish or the small fish, bein chayim, whether it's sushi, raw, bein mavusham, whether it's cooked, gefilte fish, umutar pitaris terufa, but you're allowed to have the fish if it's chopped up, because the fish, once it's chopped up in small fishes, it's not going to be included in the category of when you make a vow against fish. Ubitzir, and you're allowed to have the fish juice, the brine, the fish oil. So we see from here, if you say any toim, it's lav dafka. It doesn't mean specifically anything coming out of this fish. It means fish in general. So isn't that a proof? Rava says, no, I'm a Rava Vikvar Yatzam. No, this case is different, because here what we're talking about is, when do we say you're allowed to have the fish oil? Because when you have the fish in front of you, the oil's already left it. You have the fish on your plate. They already drained out the oil from the fish. And so therefore it's not a good proof. And so the Gemara leaves this question unresolved. Okay, hold on one second.